Anecdote?
What did I say?
Yeah, antidote. Anecdote.
Anecdote. Okay.
Wait, use her accent.
Okay. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm here today with my friend and dietitian, Marissa Meshulam, and today we are going to be walking through all of your prenatal questions. So I'm currently 7 months pregnant. Marissa was a godsend helping me get through my first trimester and all of my nutrition and dietary questions that I had and just general emotional support. So I asked you guys for all of your questions on my Instagram. You did not disappoint. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, I'm excited. And I think it goes without saying, remember, this is general guidance. This is also what worked for Emily, not necessarily what is going to work for you. So before you go home and try to change everything based on what you hear in this video, really work with your own OB or your dietitian and listen to your own body, because this is what worked best for Emily, not necessarily what's going to work best for you. So this is not medical advice. This is just her story, and I give some nutrition tips along the way.
But I have given some of these tips to a couple of friends, and they were like life-saving tips.
Well,
so that's good.
Saving lives over here.
Okay, so the first question that we got, and I think one of the first things you want to tackle when you first find out you're pregnant, is when the morning sickness hits. So I went to Marissa very early on. I was in my first trimester. For myself, I hated all foods. I was nauseous all the time. I never threw up, but like I had so many food aversions, like any type of cooked vegetable, still not feeling that. That never really went away. I felt like I wasn't getting enough protein. And I think also when you first find out you're pregnant, like you have anxiety because you're like, I feel like I need to like be doing all the right things for me and my baby. And then you're like, but all I want to eat is like saltines and macaroni and cheese. So what should people do who you find out you're pregnant, you feel awful, you're nauseous, you have morning sickness? What are some things people can do?
I think the first thing is like take a breath, right?
Yeah.
Also remember that this is not forever. So how you feel for these first 3 months, because for most women, not all women, some women it carries them throughout the pregnancy. For most of us, it's just the beginning. Mm-hmm. So a lot of those food aversions hopefully will go away, but with morning sickness, a lot of those feelings that you're feeling have to do with blood sugar changes. So what we want to really focus on doing is eating consistently throughout the day. So no longer going until waiting until noon for your first meal of the day, which I know you used to love to do. So avoiding that and really keeping food in your stomach at all times. We talked about having really easy foods also. So things like, English muffins, like the Ezekiel ones, which are a great protein source that we loved, or even like a healthier dry cereal. Just keeping your stomach filled is the first thing.
Yeah, the cereal tip, like that, when you sent me a couple of, and we can link them below, a couple of the cereals that Marissa recommended, and I gave that tip to my girlfriend as well. For some reason, like the coldness and the simplicity of cereal was a game changer for me.
Well, that actually is like that second point that we were going to talk about, right? So you want to keep it bland as best you can. And one of the tips I had said to Emily was avoid hot foods. During pregnancy, your sense of smell is heightened, and heating actually makes it smell more, like when you're in the cafeteria and someone like warms up salmon or something and it smells. That probably makes you, I'm so sorry. But really avoiding hot foods for the time being, sticking to the cold stuff, even room temperature, that tends to be helpful. And then other things for nausea. So citrus can be really helpful, even smelling lemon balm, like getting like a little stick of it or like a candle that you really like, that can be a great one. Other like nausea things, carbonation. Did you do any of that? Was it helpful for you?
Like ginger ale or something
and
like
even just like soda water, some people like.
I did like ginger beers, ginger ales, just because it kind of reminded me of like that soothing feeling, but I don't know if it did anything.
And then if your nausea does get really bad, which I know you experienced this, actually taking an additional B6 supplement can be something that's helpful. So we're going to talk vitamins in a minute. There is B6 in most prenatals, but sometimes we need like an extra boost, and that can be helpful.
Yeah, totally. I did the B6. I did the Unisom B6 combination, which was very helpful.
And then the last thing to really think about is like hydration is super, super key. If you become dehydrated during your pregnancy, which is so easy when you can't really stomach anything, and when a lot of people are throwing up, that's going to make nausea worse. If you think about a hangover, it's bad because you're dehydrated. That is nausea 101. So staying hydrated as best you can. And it doesn't always need to be just water. Like eating hydrating foods. I know you were like loving fruit
Yes,
in the beginning.
I was. Fruits were really great, but staying hydrated was really hard for me as well because you are already peeing every 5 seconds when you're pregnant. So I was actively avoiding drink. I found myself like avoiding drinking water because I was like, I need to be near a restroom like at all times. I'm in here all the time. So avoid that. Okay, so another common question, something that has a lot of buzz around it, is what shouldn't you eat while you are pregnant? So there's a lot of guidelines, and I'm sure your doctor, your OB says avoid X, Y, and Z. How should we think about that?
Okay, so that's a loaded question. And I think starting with, from a nutrition perspective, you know this, you've come to me for a while now. I always like to think about what we're adding in versus what we're taking away, but there is a time and a place here, and pregnancy is that time. So I think it goes without saying, like alcohol, drugs, anything, even like a CBD or kombucha, we want to avoid any of that stuff or any sort of detoxy product. At this time, we want your body to retain all the nutrients it can, so certain things like that, let's definitely cut back on. But there's a few reasons why we're a little more strict with pregnant women. The first reason is that we actually have a decreased immune system during pregnancy, which leads you to be more susceptible to foodborne illness, which I know that's something you've experienced.
I was telling Marissa, like, this topic is tough, I feel like, in terms of what you need to give up while pregnant. I don't know about you guys also, but I already felt like I was sacrificing so much, and then I felt like I had to sacrifice more.
So it is, when we think about foodborne illness, we want to reduce the amount of raw foods that we have as much as possible. So sushi, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Even like a runny egg, like trying to have a more cooked egg, I know. A more cooked egg at this time, you want to be careful. Raw cheeses, anytime something's processed, there's a higher risk, is basically the way to think about it. But I think stick to the cooked stuff as best you can, you know, avoiding cookie dough, and if you're craving cookie dough, make your own at home, like one of those easy mixes.
Whole Foods has a good one.
Do they?
A good raw cookie dough that has no egg in it, so
there you go.
We'll link that below.
Okay, so along with our decreased immune system, we also want to think about our toxic load. So I know that sounds like a big scary word, but basically it just means that throughout the day, because of our environment, the foods we eat, the products we use, we are all ingesting toxins. Now, we're humans that have lived, you know, X amount of years and have an immune system built up to that, but this baby doesn't yet. So the toxic load is a bigger deal when you're pregnant and really can cause like damage with chromosomes and things like that. So that is the time to be really like particular about how much you're ingesting. And for everyone that looks a little bit different. But I really start with trying to avoid plastics as best as you can, switching to a glass water bottle or a stainless steel water bottle, especially reheating foods in plastic. So when you reheat those foods, you actually can absorb some of that microplastic into your food. Not really great for our hormones, not great for the baby. So plastic is a really, I know it's seemingly everywhere, and that's not to say like if you're out and dehydrated, go buy the plastic water bottle.
Right.
But maybe make it a thing that, you know, you start carrying your glass water bottle with you a little bit more throughout the day. We also want to avoid really anything artificial. So artificial sweeteners, your bodies don't know how to process them. Get rid of them as best you can during pregnancy. Other things with that, food dyes are a really big one that we really want to avoid, especially red food dyes. There's so much research showing that red food dye can cause like chromosomal damage. So I don't want to scare you, but looking at your ingredients sometimes, like Twizzlers and red M&Ms, like there's a lot of crap in there that we don't want to be eating, but you can always get an upgraded version of all of those things if that's what you're craving. And with the toxin load, we do want to choose organic as best we can. Now, obviously there's a cost barrier there and you do what you can, but one area I really said, and I know we talked about this, because you were loving oats and grains and those kind of things, go organic with that kind of stuff. It's worth the extra buck or two. You know, those are really highly sprayed pesticide crops. We talked about the cereal earlier. I helped you find some organic options that were a little bit better and still easier to manage, but those are really the biggest things. So your immune system's compromised, it's decreased a little bit, and we want to make sure that we're not just ingesting a ton of toxins. And think about that also with the cleaning products you're using, with skincare that you're using, which I'm sure you could talk about. You know, what you put on your body, your skin's an organ, it absorbs that too, and if you're cleaning and scrubbing, you're getting it in all the time. So we can't be perfect, don't drive yourself crazy, but maybe pick and choose a few areas that you're gonna wanna reduce that toxin load. And that goes along with fish too, when they talk about choosing like lower mercury options. So maybe avoiding the tuna for right now and sticking more to that salmon.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, our next question is, what vitamins should you be taking? So obviously when you first get pregnant, you're like, wondering what you should be eating, what kind of vitamins, what kind of supplements, and Marissa was so helpful for me in terms of what I started to incorporate into my diet and my routines. So where do we start?
Okay, so you start with recognizing you are an individual person, so what works for one does not work for all, depending on your diet, what you're eating, especially what you ate before pregnancy, because that tells us what your nutrient stores are like, and what you're able to stomach in that first trimester. Your needs are really going to vary. One thing that's really important before supplementation, and I know I was such a stickler about this for you, is I want to see your lab work. So certain things like checking your vitamin D, your iron stores, the amount you need to supplement really varies based on where you're starting. So making sure that at one of those first appointments with your OB, when they are drawing your blood anyway, you get those specific things checked. So vitamin D and iron are two that we really want to see where you're starting. But I always say supplements are nutrition 2.0, meaning that if you're not eating a well-balanced diet, you can't supplement your way out of that. Pregnancy is a time where I say that's a little different. A lot of us can't really stomach the normal foods. I know for you were freaking out, like, I can't eat vegetables, and you usually love them. And that's where we get so many of our vitamins. So that's why we have prenatal supplements, because during the first trimester, a lot of people can't stomach these things, and it's your like insurance policy is the way I think about it. So you want to start with a good quality prenatal. One thing I'll note is look for some good quality, like good forms of certain vitamins. So folate, for example, you don't want to get it in folic acid. This is actually a synthetic form. Our bodies can't use it as well. Really, we want to look for methylfolate when we see that, or folate on its own is just fine. So that's one thing to really think about. Secondly, choline is so important for the baby's development, and a lot of prenatals are really lacking in that. So the RDA for choline is like 450 when you're pregnant. You can definitely get some in throughout your diet, but it's hard to get all of that. So looking for a prenatal that has about 400 is usually what I say. Also, you want to make sure that there is vitamin B6 in your prenatal. This is super important. Actually interesting to note that birth control depletes our vitamin B6. So a lot of women are really depleted of it by the time they're ready to have a baby.
Interesting.
So making sure vitamin B6 is in there is really important. Iron is another one to think about. So it really also depends on your diet. If you're a vegan or vegetarian, you are definitely going to need to up your iron. Iron's so important for like red blood cell formation. And if you think about it, you're growing the blood for another human. So your blood volume actually increases by 50% during pregnancy. So we need more iron for sure, but some of us can reach that with diet, some of us can't. It's actually a great idea to get iron separately from your prenatal too, because iron can interact with those other vitamins in there. It can oxidize, not work as well. So that's something to definitely find on an individual. And then vitamin D is really important during pregnancy. We do want to know where you're starting, but you might need an additional vitamin D supplement on top of what's in your prenatal. So those are some things to look at in the prenatal in general, but then we know I gave you some bonus things for what was going on. So one thing that happens, and it was another question we'll touch on in a little bit, is constipation during pregnancy. A lot of times that's from the iron supplements too, but it also just can be from what's going on. The progesterone that's releasing throughout your body actually can create more constipation. So magnesium citrate is a godsend. We don't want you taking a ton of laxatives while you're pregnant. No detoxy things. So if you can avoid it, using something more natural like magnesium citrate is a really good idea.
Magnesium for me is like the greatest supplement ever, because it's like I take it at night. It helps with the constipation. It helps you relax. Like it always helps my sleep. It also helps with muscle cramps, because like that is
You're the nutritionist.
I know.
She's learned so much.
But I also started taking magnesium baths as well. But also that's because my doula said like sometimes while you're pregnant you just cannot absorb enough. So that's why I started taking Epsom salt baths with magnesium as well. But I just think it is like the most magical supplement.
Oh, that's something that everyone should be on, pregnant or not. Stress depletes magnesium, and I mean we're sitting here in New York City, probably the most stressed place on the planet. So most of us need a little bit extra. I also like to put people on an omega-3. So your baby's brain is developing, right? Like you're growing a new brain, which is like crazy to think about. I know. We all need omega-3s in general, but we want even more then. And especially a lot of us have food aversions where eating a ton of salmon doesn't sound so great right now. You're not eating as much fish if you're removing things like sushi. So definitely a great omega-3 supplement. And the only last thing I would really think about would be maybe a probiotic, depending on what's going on with you, but that's something I would look at, with your OB, with your own dietitian, and kind of see what works.
Okay, so next question. How bad is coffee? Can I drink coffee? Personal antidote here. Antidote? Is that the word? Antidote?
Yes.
Yeah. I have drank coffee throughout my entire pregnancy. What's antidote? What did you say?
Anecdote?
What did I say?
Yeah, antidote. It's anecdote.
Anecdote. Okay.
Use her accent.
Okay. Personal story here for me with coffee. I've drunken it. I'm still drinking coffee in my pregnancy. I drink 1 cup in the morning, and Marissa will talk a little bit about like how much and all of that. But for myself, I gave it up for 1 week. But it kind of goes back to that feeling of like I already felt like I was sacrificing so much. Like my food was different, my workouts are different, everything was different. And my coffee is such a nice part of my morning ritual, and I actually don't need that much to keep that in my ritual,
right.
Which is why I kept it. But I know for everyone is different. Like some people just go totally cold turkey, and I'm like, I just also like it gives me a little bit of productivity in the morning, which made me feel better generally, like spiritually and emotionally.
Yeah.
And like for me during pregnancy, like those are still important things. Like I want to feel good.
We talked about like how to like hold on to things that make you feel
Yeah,
you
like-
too. Like there's a lot going on with your body where it
Yeah.
doesn't feel like your own some days. So if coffee is something that really brought you joy, we can find ways to work
Yeah.
it in that feel good. There's a blanket recommendation that says like 200 milligrams or less of caffeine a day. That's about 2 8-ounce cups of coffee. Now, 8 ounces is quite smaller than the size cold brew most of us are drinking, and that's a regular coffee, not cold brew, which tends to be a little bit stronger. So keep that in mind. I really like to say 1 time max. You also get caffeine in through other things, like you're getting it in through chocolate, through tea, other ways. So we really do want to watch that. I like to say 1 time a day, keep it at that. Coffee is another area that if you can, also go organic because that's a really highly sprayed pesticide crop. So if you are drinking it every single morning, really be mindful of that. If you like it just as a routine, try switching to decaf, see how you feel. If it doesn't do it for you, that's okay. Just keep it to that like 1 serving. There's a lot of like misconstrued, or I guess a lot of not really well understood research on this. It's not really ethical to test pregnant women, so we don't have great research on this because we're not going to give them something that could be harmful. But there's some research that suggests with more caffeine, there is more issues with like, higher rates of miscarriage or lower birth weight. So that can create some problems. We really don't know, but I would say err on the side of caution, caffeine once a day, and keep it at that.
Yeah. Okay, next question. Can you be vegan or vegetarian while pregnant?
You can do whatever feels best in your body. You know yourself. I would say don't feel like you need to go vegan or vegetarian while pregnant. Eating good quality meat is actually a great way to get in so many of the nutrients your body needs while pregnant. So if you are a meat eater, don't feel like you need to make the switch. But if you're vegan or vegetarian for ethical reasons, that's totally cool, up to you. You will need additional supplements. So that's something you definitely want to talk to the provider about. Like vitamin B12 is a big one. Iron is another one. If you are eating plant-based iron, combine it with a little bit of vitamin C. That actually helps with absorption. So if you think about like lentils, add like a lemon vinaigrette, and that will help your body absorb it a little bit more. Calcium might be harder to get if you're vegan too. So there are things to think about, but definitely, yes, just supplement a little bit more.
Or maybe someone needs to work with someone like you.
That's awesome. Hit me up.
Okay, next question. How do I get enough protein? Like you want to feel fuller, longer. This was something that I really, really struggled with. I had such an aversion to all meats, eggs, like everything I used to eat, I could not stand. So what are some tips of sneaking protein in there?
Yes, I think start small, right? So we want you to be eating little bits throughout the day. So anywhere that you can, if you can stomach it, see if you can add a little bit of protein. So adding a nut butter, like if you're craving a lot of carbs, right? Bagels are a big thing for pregnant women.
Yeah.
But we always talked about upgrading it when you can, and then also just getting the regular thing when you need it. But having something like a whole grain English muffin, that, those English muffins have 8 grams of protein to begin with. You're adding a slice of cheese or you're adding a little bit of nut butter and hemp seeds, you easily can get it close to 20 grams of protein.
Yeah.
So little things throughout the day. I know you loved Greek yogurt. That was a good one.
Yeah.
that really works.
And
for
putting
you.
like a Greek yogurt into a smoothie was really helpful for me. Like just finding ways to just sneak it in. Like I'll put the Greek yogurt, I'll put a little bit of almond butter, like anything, the spinach, like anything to just like.
Smoothies are a good
It
one.
stacks up, it adds up.
It does, and that's an easy way to kind of drink it down, for lack of better words. And then we don't want to do this every day, but we talked about, we got you like a good prenatal collagen. You don't want to really be doing a ton of powders and things when you're pregnant, but there are certain brands that are designed for, you know, people who are pregnant, and they're safe and they're tested, and you're making sure you're getting in the right stuff. I would just say avoid any sort of protein powder that has a lot of additives to it. Like, you know, a lot of those green protein powders tend to add like dandelion root and all these things that great for someone who's not pregnant, not great for someone who's pregnant. So we love doing like you would do like in your oatmeal, collagen, nuts, hemp seeds, all those things. So
hemp, chia, flax.
You did all
those
the seeds.
ones. Yeah.
The seeds are an easy
alternate.
one. Yeah. And smoothies also too are a great way, you know, if you're using a little bit of that protein to add in there.
Yeah.
But also not forgetting that like everything has protein, like a lot of foods. Like 2 cups of broccoli, not that you wanted that at that point, has 5 grams of protein. So like you can get protein without eating like a pound of chicken. Now it's easier with chicken or beef or eggs. Eggs are a really great one if you're pregnant and can stomach them because of all the choline in there, and especially the yolk.
You know what else? I mean, I don't know if we talked about this, but I've been doing a lot of bone broth too.
I think that was on your list of things I sent you.
And the bone broth that I've been drinking has 20 grams of protein in it.
It's amazing. And you can sip it.
And it's like warm and soothing. And like for me in the afternoon, because I'm not doing coffee, like I just have that instead. And I'm like 20 grams of protein, like that. It's awesome.
Yeah. And that's a great like non-pregnant snack too.
Yeah.
So like all of this is just like good nutrition, but kind of like pregnancy is similar to like kids nutrition, like where can you sneak it in so that they don't realize. And we also said like some of those like higher protein pastas you were not able to stomach. So any sort of lentil, chickpea, mung bean, edamame pasta is actually my new favorite. It's delicious and it holds its form really well, which is great. So those are other great ways to add a little bit of protein. But just on a general note with that, trying to stay full, it's not just about the protein. Fat is so important, and I know I like harped on that a lot with you. Like adding a little bit of avocado to things if you can handle it. Tahini is a great one, but that combination of protein, fat, and fiber is what keeps you full. So what I see going on with a lot of women who are pregnant is we're just leaning more so on that carb, that like fiber, but we're not getting enough fat and protein to really keep us full. So if you can stomach it, adding some of those things to the carb is really the best way to go.
Yeah, my favorite thing for that was like the Ezekiel English muffin, grass-fed butter, avocado, and then like 2 organic eggs on top.
Beautiful.
It was just so epic. It got me through the first trimester because I would wake up and be okay, and I'd be like, I can have that. The rest of the day was awful, but at least I had that.
You got in good nutrition in the morning, and sometimes that's the best you can do.
Yeah, and it kept me full. So I'll take it. Okay, our next question is how to deal with cravings. So I feel like that is the number one question I get. People are like, oh my God, like, do you have any weird cravings or weird food combinations? I unfortunately experienced like very much the opposite, where I didn't want to eat anything I used to eat, like struggled to find things I felt motivated to eat. So what is the best way to deal with cravings if you're getting like these big, huge cravings all the time? Because I know there are some women who are like, I made my husband drive like 45 minutes to like go get in and out, and I'm like, I haven't had that yet. I was waiting.
I think the first thing, and this goes with cravings, pregnant or not, honor it. You know, we spend so much of our time being like, how can we avoid something? Like, if you just ate it, you might not be craving it all the time. Sometimes, like, we build it up in our heads that we can't have these things. We make the food hard to get. The first thing with the craving is just honor it. Now, with that being said, and I know this was like a big fear of yours, but like, pregnancy is not a time to eat for 2. That's such like an antiquated advice. Yes, your body needs more energy. You're growing a new human, but you don't necessarily need double the amount of energy that you normally had. You know, in your second and third trimester, it increases by like 300 calories a day and then like 450 calories a day. And we don't talk in terms of calories, but just to give you an idea, that's like, you know, a large snack or like a mini meal. It's not like double of every meal. So come at it from that mindset. Know that like we're adding in nutrition throughout the day, right? But if you need those things, have them. One craving that comes up a lot for people is like sugar cravings and things like that.
Yeah.
If you're craving sugar constantly throughout the day, and this goes pregnant or not, you could be doing one of two things. So first thing, you might not be getting in enough fat and protein, and number two, you might be trying to go too low carb, which we definitely don't want to do during pregnancy. I see it a lot with women in general who really are like terrified of that sweet potato or banana, but are like, you know, elbow deep in the pile of donuts later on in the day because they're starving. So that goes the same way, making sure you're getting in the slow, nutrient-dense carbs, potatoes, quinoa, rice, beans, all those things which are super nutritious too. Because usually if you have enough of those, you're not going to be overdoing it on the sugar.
I think that's really helpful. I remember when I went to my OB and I had anxiety about like, because they tell you in some of these books like what to expect when you're expecting, like you need to gain this much weight like per week and that's X amount of calories. And I said to her, I was super stressed. I was like, how thoughtful do I need to be about that? Like, should I be making sure I get that 300 calories a day? And actually my OB was very much like, you know, no, just like eat intuitively. Like you're going to go through moments where you're going to be super hungry and need more food, and you should listen to that when that happens.
Yes.
And she was totally right. I mean, it is basically like intuitive eating in a way, but there were certain times in my pregnancy where I was like, I just need like a massive sandwich. Like I need substance and I need like to feel super full right now. Not because I'm like, it's a specific craving. It's just like you feel like you need the energy or the source. And that's kind of like how I thought about it. But not stressing like you need to be eating X amount of calories and X amount of weight. Like it just, that was so stressful to me. And she was like, you just listen to your body. Like you'll be hungrier at moments. Like in my second trimester, I remember I felt that and I just listened to it. And now I'm in my third trimester and I actually feel quite a bit less hungry. I think because there's just less room in there.
Small meals.
Yeah.
Becomes really important. But I think the idea of what you're saying, listen to your body.
Yeah.
We talk about that all the time. That's my premise on nutrition in general. Mindful eating talks about balancing your inner and outer wisdom. So inner wisdom is that internal clock. It's, you know, your hunger cues, your fullness cues. It's what sounds good right now, and sometimes that's a big sandwich. And then we have outer wisdom, which is kind of what I'm here for you, right? That nutrition knowledge of like, how can you balance things? What can you add in? And really it's about balancing those two things. So taking that inner wisdom and that outer wisdom and figuring out what works right for you.
Okay, all right, that answers all of our questions. Do you have any parting words for our pregnant ladies or just anyone at home?
Yeah, I think it's always important to remember the first thing you asked, right? What can you do? Take a breath, take a step back. Nutrition, it's my job. I love it. I think it's amazing that what we can eat can make us feel better and make us live longer and healthier. And that's fabulous, but it's also a young science. There were mothers, you know, it's only been around for like 100 years or less than that. People were having babies for much longer than that. The perfect prenatal was not out there. There wasn't the collagen and all these things. And while it's great that we get to use them, don't feel like you need to get bogged down in the details. Instead, really use this as a time to listen to yourself. And I think the last thing we can touch on maybe is like body image with all that. As that changed throughout pregnancy, I think, you know, you could definitely speak to that, but now is a time more than ever to be appreciative of what your body can do.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it really has forced me to like have a level of like kindness and gentleness to yourself, because like whether you fight it with all your heart or not, your body is about to go through massive changes. Like even as an example, like everyone's like, oh my God, are you so afraid of stretch marks? Like, do you have them? And I'm like, first of all, I already had stretch marks. So like,
let's normalize that.
Yeah, like most people do.
I think we all do.
Yeah. And second of all, I have like none on my stomach and they're all over my boobs, and I didn't see that coming. And like, I think everyone thinks that they're gonna be somewhere, like whatever. But no matter what, if I fought that all that I could, like there was nothing that I was going to be able to do about it. Like, why make yourself miserable? Like I kind of every day, I'm just like, you know what, take it day by day. This is where I'm at today. Try to do the best that I can. Because like you just can't be mean to yourself during this time. Like you already have so much going on. There's a lot of weight on your shoulders, a lot of to-dos, like mentally and like physically. It's just, you gotta like be kind to yourself. There's like, I don't know how I would survive otherwise.
I think the theme here is like your body knows best.
Yeah.
So listen to what it's telling you. Your body's telling you information every single day. The better you can get, especially during pregnancy, at listening to it and honoring it, you're just gonna feel more at peace. And there's only so much you can control, which is kind of annoying for some people to hear, but it's the truth, right? We can only manipulate things so much. So your body's going to do what it needs to do. You can join it peacefully on that journey or try to fight it every step of the way, but it's probably better to do the former.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Marissa, thank you so much for coming on my channel. Again, if you guys are not familiar with Marissa, we actually did a video like at the beginning of the pandemic, all about intuitive eating.
Yeah, intuitive mindful eating. We talked about the stress of what's going on.
Exactly. So you guys, we'll put that link below if you guys want to check it out. But thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Go follow Marissa. I will put all of her socials below, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Bye.